Hey, Sam here, Real Love Guitars Workshop, and I'm just trying out a little bit of new technology, ladies and gentlemen. Got a very good price on this, so what's cool about it is you can't really see the other end, but the little unit that goes to the camera is so small that I can take the camera around much easier than with a great big Tascam stuck to the end of it. So I'm just making sure this doesn't bang into scarves and whatnot, or faces for that matter. Can I see it? Oh yeah, I can see it. Right, so I haven't sorted the lights out yet, so Dave, I did get the lights. Here's one of them. The batteries are currently charging, so until I get those charged up, I'm not going to add them into the mix. Oh, there is one here, but it's I can put the light on. You can probably see it, but it's a little bit of extra lighting. Might as well run it while we've got it, but it doesn't make the world's most difference. Sorry. So I won't know what this sounds like until I do a test, but I'm not going to run all the way into the house to check this out. I'm just going to trust that it works. So now we've got the mic on the camera on a big microphone stand. Anyway, we'll see how this all works out. It's all Velcroed, so everything's held in the air by Velcro. So where are we? This is the weekend. This is the time to get this Fender Musicmaster sorted out, and I've got the frets ready to go in. I've done some of them and clipped them off, ready to be edged and then chamfered off and then finished off by hand. So at the moment the fingerboard's looking a bit dry because it's post having changed the done the radiusing, but we'll put some oil on that afterwards once we've got all this part of it done. Now here's a test of the unit. Ready? Stand by for noise. That's so simple. Right, so down there we have the fret press, the press arbor it's called. So that's what we're using to, oops, I'll do it from the side. That's what we're using to press the frets in. And I'll probably, once I've velcroed this back onto here, good old Velcro, probably be able to take you over there in a little bit so you can see. I don't know what the lighting's really like. Okay, so what we've got to do, we're going to put these frets back in, and I'm going to do it with some some water, some glue. It's a bit messy. Some glue, nice little syringe, and I'm going to do this next set here and then clamp them with this 7.25 radius. If you remember from the last video, or part 1, I had to re-radius this because although we all thought it was 7.25 radius, in fact it was something like 6 3/4 or something like that, so it needed re-radiusing, which tidied it up quite a bit, but also still left some of the interesting character in the wood, which I think is nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to it's going to look quite messy, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue into each of these slots, and then I'm going to wipe most of it out and then go and do the pressing from there. And the problem, not problem, but I've changed things around a bit. I did the first lot up on the bench, so I'm going to put these frets down here. It gets a bit darker over there, so it might be a little bit more difficult. These lights, batteries are running out, so that's going to conk out any minute. Right, so just to begin with, and I'll probably want to change glasses. So this is, you're always, I suppose, always racing against the clock a little bit. So the first thing I'll do is I've got my cloth ready, and my slots are cleaned out, ready to go. And I'm just going to drop glue on top of this slot. Now, you know, it's a good idea to keep it as minimal as possible, but it's difficult to do with a syringe, and you want to take the pressure off the syringe as soon as you've done that. And I'm going to do a couple one after another. Sometimes it's very hard and the syringe kind of clicks forward, and there you go, you get tons of glue out in one go and more than you need, and then you drop it across and you get blobs onto the next one. It doesn't matter too much because we're going to wipe it all off, right? So all that matters is we get glue into these slots. I'm going to do the first 4 without overdoing it, and then stop. Take the pressure off that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get an old cloth for this. What I'm going to do is with a knife, I'm going to make sure this glue goes into the slot with a blade. So that's the first thing. Just make sure it's in the slot, because sometimes it sits as a bead just outside. I prefer to use this wood glue. A lot of people swear by CA glue or super glue. I've got some of that, came in the post. But one of the things I've discovered about this is the older the guitar and the thinner the fingerboard, if you've had to do re-radiusing, for example, then on this fingerboard there isn't, because it's so old and we've had to re-radius it, there isn't a lot of depth to go down any further, so it's not really a feasible option to cut those slots any deeper. If we were, we'd end up sort of going through the board and possibly coming out or chopping the rosewood bit in half. Okay, so I've just cleaned most of that up, and I've got myself 4 bits of glue, so 4 frets with glue in it. So sorry about this. This microphone stand is really not the ideal thing, so I'm going to mash it around and see if we can take it for a walk over there. I guess we can. It's really not ideal. Okay, it's a bit dark, and I'm going to take things I need over here and see if I can just do it. I haven't done it sitting here, so this is going to be me making it up as I go along. So I've got it's very dark actually, I've got my frets here, and I could, if I wanted to, I could probably put all 4 of them in place to begin with, but I'm just going to place the first one and make sure it's hopefully in the vertical, sorry, not vertical, yeah, the tang wants to be vertical, and then I'm going to use I'm not going to do that, I'm going to redo the arbor, so I've got, the handle has got room to come down, and then I'm going to hold this in position. I'm just going to put it on the deck so I get the angle, the position of the call right first, and then I'm just going to line that up if I can. That's okay. I can see it's pressing down, and then I can swing on that with a bit of weight, not too much. I don't want to compress the neck to death, but you can see that the glue is coming out from underneath. I think you can see the glue is coming out from underneath. That tells us we've got a good seated fret. I'm just going to move that up. Again, I'm going to center it so it doesn't fall over. Pick another fret. Just make sure these are all clean, no obstructions of any kind. And I'm going to pop that one next to it. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm pressing these frets in using a caul that has a 7.25. If I could see what I was doing, I would. I'm going to press it in with a 7.25 radius. Then I'm going to go over it. I'm going to change the caul, and I'm going to go over it with a 6.25. Sorry, 6-inch radius. And that's going to press, just do a little bit of extra pressure down on the ends. Okay, that's nicely done. Again, you can see the goo coming out. If I was really clever, I'd hang on that for a minute, and with one hand, here, with one hand, I really should have set up some light over here, but never mind, we will for another time. Yeah, with a bit of luck with one hand, I will just drop this one. I don't think I will, it's resisting my attempts to do it one-handed. That's not it. Sometimes these things can be really tricky to get started, so I'm going to call that no deal with one hand. Push that back for a minute, grab my cloth, and while I'm at it, I'm just going to take the excess glue away from the edges of these 2 frets that I've already pressed in. There's no reason to have it sitting around. And then with both hands, probably, I'm going to try and line up the next one. Like I say, it's sometimes a little difficult. Sometimes they instinctively kind of tip over onto one side and they just want to stay there. No matter what you do, they kind of gravitate isn't the right word, but you know what I mean, they tend towards that position, and they want to be tilted over, and that gets really frustrating because that's not what you need them to be. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this down on there. Again, all a bit sort of, that's trying to be on target. That's just got it, yep. That's good. So I'm just going to double check and then go back down on top of it. Press. I've got somebody's long hair caught up in that. Okay, that's that one in. Again, I'm going to give it a quick clean. Hard to do because I've got a bit of a stringy cloth here, and it immediately gets caught on the sharp fret ends. So you just got to be careful. And then the next one in. Again, that's tilted over to the side. See if I can get it to bite. This arbor, press arbor, whatever they call it, arbor press. Yeah, that's okay, that's good. This is bolted to this great big chunk of wood, which has also got a vise at the other end, so the two things kind of counterbalance each other a bit, although this is heavier. Okay, so that's that pressed in nicely. Now, just for these 4 frets, what I'm going to, am I going to do something for these 4, or am I just going to get on? Let's think. Yeah, I've got 3 more to do. Let me put a bead of glue on these next 3, and we'll just get those done. What I was saying is, once I've pressed them in with the 7.25 caul, I'm going to get a 6-inch caul and put it into the 6-inch insert and put it into the fret caul, and press once more on those, and then clamp the whole up with a 7.25. And the reason I'd use that 6-inch one, which isn't actually designed for any frets at all, there's no neck with it. I don't think there's any necks in electric guitar land with a 6-inch radius, but the purpose of that one is to press down the ends of the fret, give them just like an extra push, because sometimes it's the fret ends that can want to pop up. Usually not the case if the radius is exactly right. That tends to be very straightforward. But sometimes if there's a slight difference in the radius, then that's where it'll show up with the fret ends trying to come up. Okay, so I've just put 3 bits of. I tell you what I'll do. Where are they? Sorry, camera. I'm just going to go and find the correct. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. See, I didn't look. I'm actually currently doing it with the 6-inch one, which is fine actually. It's just doing the whole thing in one go. And then I'm going to clamp this down with a 7.25-inch block to just leave it in its correct radius to add that last bit of pressure. So if I can get these final 3 down, get them in line. It's really nice when they go in. You can see the glue come out the side, and you know that they're seated properly. Get your cloth. I'm sorry, it might actually be okay because these cameras are quite good at cranking up the lighting, so with a bit of luck you'll be seeing this without a problem. As I say, keep getting these bits of cloth caught. I should have got myself a sort of a cloth instead of a string vest cloth, but it's just what came to hand. Okay, get these 2 more in, and then, you know, as I say, it's a sort of race against time, so you're wanting to make sure that at every point you're taking care of the excess glue, and you don't want it drying on the fingerboard. That's nice. Down it goes. Again, if you see any blobs of glue, just take care of them. So this is going quite well. Should have perhaps put this on a head camera or something. Now it's light enough. Could have velcroed it to my hat. So you might, eagle-eyed spotters here might notice that this fret core is currently held on to the, what do we call this thing? It's a thing, you know, the big heavy metal thing, ram. It's held onto the ram with some gaffer tape at the moment. I do have every intention of putting the correct screw, tapping a screw in there, so that I can hold it in with a screw. But actually, for now, that's doing not a bad job holding it in. Okay, so there we have our frets glued in place, and now we're going to clamp this neck in its position on here with, yeah, let's get up and show you. Oh, this is quite interesting. I wonder what you can see from there. Ooh. So yeah, I'm just going to dry it a little bit before I clamp it. I don't want it too wet in there. And then I'm going to clamp these down for an hour or so, and get them really firmly stuck in place with a nice 7.25 radius block and a couple of clamps, both of which I'll take from here because that's no longer necessary. Make sure these things don't fall over while I'm taking this off. Not that you can see it at the moment, but just being careful. Got a big lump of oak up there on my drill press. Right. So yeah, I'll make sure I know which ones I've just done. Put the radius evenly across them. Lock them nicely in place, and then clamp one end right in the centre. Yep. And then do the same at the other end. Back up a little ways because that's where the frets are. Okay, and that's so you can probably see that's clamping those all nicely down. I mean, it's pretty much solid in all directions, and we can put that off to one side. And just, you know, I like to always double check things to make sure they are set correctly and there's nothing kind of untoward or buckled or twisted or whatever. So once we've got that in place, then we can leave it for an hour, and then we'll do the other the final three frets a bit later on. So I'm going to place that on the seat, and it's time to get on with other things, which is great. So remember what I've got different things for. There's my wet rag for taking the glue off the fingerboard. There's some more clamps. Blah, 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 blah. So there you have it. Now the next part of this operation, clamp these out of the way. Next part of the operation will be on the neck will be to cut. Sorry, I'm just struggling with a clamp. It's not working. Next stage of the operation will be to cut all the metal ends off the frets, and then we're going to use this device to first of all put a straight edge on or take off any excess, and then the next we're going to use the angled edge to put an angle, chamfer it or bevel it, whichever word you prefer. And once we've done that, then we need to finish off close up. We need to get up close and friendly with those frets. I'm going to use this little triangle file to finish them off so that they're smooth and there's no sharp edges and they're nicely rounded. And we can also use a bit of sandpaper as well if we want. Oh, you're right down there, camera. These are interesting little tool. This is an interesting little tool. This is the pliers for pulling up frets. In fact, I can show you how that works using an old demo neck while we're at it that we don't care much about. Is that in? I'm very clumsy today, sorry about that. Like, you can see alright, can't you? Yeah. Okay, there's a fret that was just put in for fun. And one of the things that you can do is you can take your soldering iron, if it's a glued fret anyway. If it's not glued, it doesn't really need this part of it, but if it's a glued fret, take your soldering iron and just place it for a bit on the fret. Let it heat up. Ideally, this will soften any glue that's in the cavity. And then the job is to use the very edge of the fret to start lifting the fret. So I don't recommend you go right in the middle and squeeze like hell, because sometimes you won't even get these sharp bits underneath. They won't even go underneath the fret, the head of the fret. So a great place to start would be at the edge, and often you can feel it. Not a very good angle here, but you can start in a way that you can actually feel the fret. Just do one hand or the other. You can feel it, the pliers going underneath. Sorry, this is not very well set up for doing it to camera. And once you get the end of these little pliers underneath, which you can feel now, you can just gently, not exactly rock, but you can use a levering action, and you can see that the fret then comes out. And just take it very, very carefully so that you're just pulling up a small amount and not yanking the whole thing out in one go. And then you can see that right at the end you can just pretty much lift the whole thing right out, and there you have it. When you take the fret out, it will leave a bit of glue sticking up, and you can take that out in a number of ways. It's probably just as easy to get this sort of square edge of a blade if you're careful, and you can take the sort of sticking up bits off, or you can take some fine sandpaper to it if you need to, and also take it away that way. Ideally, if you're going to do this, you'd probably take all of the frets out and then just make sure with a radius block that you can then quite confidently take all of that slightly proud excess material that you often get when you remove frets. So ideally you would think about reprofiling. Well, you could reprofile to really smooth that board out again, and there's no reason why not to if you've got the radius block and you've got a few grades of sandpaper. It's a nice thing to do. Tidy up the fingerboard, gets rid of any marks. Then the other thing, of course, you've got to remember is you need to make sure that the slot is cleaned out and is the correct depth. So you can use either a knife as long as it fits and doesn't widen the hole, or if you've got the correct width of, this is a nut file, a nut slot file, but it's also just happens to be the right width for cutting the slot in these necks. So you can just follow the radius and just make sure the slot's clean and deep enough, ready for the next fret, which you can then just, actually you could use that one again because it wasn't glued in, it was just pressed in. But it's the wrong, you can see it's the wrong radius for this neck. This is a 12 radius. It's an encore neck, well, you can see with a few holes, but it's a 12 radius, so it's more like a Les Paul setup. Okay, right, that's that bit. Now, of course, I've lost, oh no I haven't, here it is, my most important little tool for the time being, which is a little Allen key thing, which means I can change the inserts in the fret core, which is a range of different radiuses. So if I've got different necks to do, I can change them out with ease by loosening it off and putting them in. So meantime, back in reality, sorry about this shaking, just kind of a testing out of this new audio bit, which is kind of, it's good in one way that it'll give me some sort of movement freedom, not really for in the shed because I don't really go very far, but for other things I might do. It's quite a useful thing, some stuff that my brother and I are planning to do. Watch this space. Okay, so we have, for cutting the edges of the frets when they're set or when their glue's dried, we're going to cut off the excess with this. We're going to then go down the side with that. Once we've done that, I'm going to concentrate on the lacquer repairs to the neck, because Joe's neck has got quite a lot of big dents and I don't want to make them cosmetically disappear. I'm not really trying to pretty it up. I can't really see them on here. Oh yeah, you can. I don't want to make them too pretty. Let's just tilt you over. Things like these holes here, I don't want to make them beautiful, but what I will do is I'll fill them with some lacquer so that they are evened out. And while I'm at it, this the edge of the fretboard, the fingerboard here, will probably need just a touch up with lacquer and then a polish out, because when you use these tools here, it's kind of difficult to avoid sometimes just touching a bit of the wood in between as you come to the very edge of the fret, or once you've made the fret completely level. And here you can probably see even though the frets have been cut off, there's still that bit left over, and that's what this device here is going to do. It's just going to let us run over the top and just file it away. Okay, I wish I could get on with that now, but I can't. So another job that we've got to do now is just to go back to the body for a moment. I've got some plastic material and I'm going to want to cut out, what am I going to want to do? Yes, I'm going to want to cut out a sort of insert to go around this pickup. That's something I want to do. But also in this I want to know how this is wired, because Joe wants this switch wired another way. So that's going to be kind of important bit of exploration. Also, while I'm at it, I'm going to cut the shims for inserting here, because remember we had to push off the neck to get it to line up properly. The bass strings were too close to the edge, so we want the neck to sit out. So I'm going to make a couple of shims, which I'm going to use a micrometer to find out how wide. And I think they need to go from about here to, actually probably not, about here to here. And we're going to make some alternatives. I'm going to cut two that are all that size and stagger them so that they're pushing kind of two steps, if you like. And I'm going to make a couple shorter so that they can be put side by side. All I'm really trying to do is minimize the amount of gap, I suppose. We don't really want to see too much gap down there, but I'm going to use black plastic so that even if you do see it, doesn't stand out a mile. It's in keeping with the black and the blue. But that will be for us to leave the neck in the correct angle. And so I'm also going to get rid of this paper here, and there'll be a plastic insert behind there with the correct cutout for this, which I'll need to. I will need to take this cover off. I don't think I've got another one that's exactly the same to draw a little template. I'll have a quick check. I've got some Strat covers. Whoop, Strat covers here. Actually, they may just happen to be. Look at that. They are almost. Yeah, in fact, they are identical. That saves a bit of time. Yeah, so I can use that, make a template in my black plastic, make the plastics around just a bit bigger, and do, as has been done here already, tape that to the inside with this cutout to match this shape. And I'll cut that with a cutting blade rather than scissors. It'd be too difficult. So there's my template, which is cool. Put that little single coil back up on the shelf. So there we have it. Interesting times. Looking forward to cracking on with this tonight. We've got quite a lot to do still, even though it's 6 o'clock, because I want to get the bulk, if not all of this done this weekend, because Joe's had a long wait for this while I've been waiting for some tools. So there we have it. Okay, progress report. Catch up with you a bit later on when that's dry and we've got the next. In fact, I won't show you putting in the next couple of frets, but I'll come back to you when all of them are in place and clipped short, and then we'll start doing the filing. Okay, see you in a minute. Hello, Sam here in the Reloved Guitars workshop, coming to you on a Friday evening. Got a lot of things to do this weekend and not a lot of time, so we're straight back into Joe's Fender Musicmaster, which we're in the process of refretting whilst doing other things to it. So I'll just show you where we're at the moment. So at the moment, excuse me, one of the things that Joe asked me to have a look at, or was interested in, was how he wasn't happy with the sound of his two pickups on in the middle switch position on his guitar, and what I just had a look and check to make sure everything's the way it should be, and excuse me, given the kind of wiring setup and the kind of switch that's used here, one of the things that you can see when you have a look inside here is that the guitar is using that kind of switch, the sort of typical what do we call them, Les Paul type 3-way switch for a 2 pickup guitar. It's the reason the sound is kind of weedy is because it's when the 2 pickups are selected, they're playing in parallel, and that means that the one pickup kind of drains or acts as a drain on the signal from the other, so you don't really get, or you get less kind of output than you would from one single pickup, and that's the sort of the problem. I think that's what Joe was not happy with. He didn't like that, doesn't like that. So, but I'm not a experienced electrician or anything, or when it comes to wiring guitars. So I had a bit of a look around, did some research, and it soon became clear that the only way you're going to get to run those 2 pickups in series would be to change the existing switch and install an additional one on top as well, which means obviously drilling more holes. And so I'm not going to do anything with that, Joe. I'm going to leave it as it is. What I am currently doing is just rejigging or just putting a piece of plastic in here to what's the word? A piece of plastic in here to just tidy up this pickup cavity. Just hold this in place. Which I can't very easily. Now it's moved, damn it. Anyway, for approximately. So yeah, so we're just going to, we're not going to do any major thing to that because, as I say, it's too much of a big deal. So I'm replacing what was originally a piece of paper. I'm just going to cut the right shaped slot out of this so it looks a lot nicer. Also just getting some rough positionings of, it's so hard to hold something when you can't move it around because it's locked in place by the wires. That should tell me where it goes. Right. And on top of that, what I have to do is I have to position the what am I doing? Oh yes, I have to cut out of here. I've got to cut a single coil single coil pickup shaped slot to get this through, but also so in such a way that it lines up with the holes, which is a bit more challenging than it at first looks. So I'm going to just use this. I don't even think that's going to give me a very good idea. Or maybe it will. Try and line up those holes first. Yeah, so what I'm just currently doing is taking care of the wire. Well, I'm going to make sure the wiring, the pickups are in the right. Pick the right thing up. Make sure the pickups are in the right. The wires are in the right place to begin with. I'm interested in this because if that's lighting, I've got this nice bright light going, but it's not really providing me enough light. I'm just trying to find myself the right shape to cut this out. Does that tally up? It does pretty much. Okay. I'm using a single coil from a strap as a sort of guide shape. I'm going to then try and cut out corresponding. Very difficult to know where one starts. I'm going to cut out the inner part, this part here. So I need to just really mark up where that goes. It's a bit tricky. And then in the background, the neck, or the frets are drying, so we should be all right. Get those, unclamp those in a minute and take a look. I think everything should be all right. I want to get that done as soon as possible. Right. I'm not sure if this is very scientific what I'm doing here. I don't think it is scientific at all, but see what happens. So I'm going to put these on here, try and draw around them. Right. Fiddly or what? Everything's slippery because it's plastic on plastic, so does that line up? That roughly does, that roughly does. So if I just hold that there, I tell myself that that's about right. I'm going to draw quite heavily around there. Give myself a template. It's moved again because it's so slippery. Well, I think that probably just about do. It just tallies with the width, just about spot on actually. Yep, that should do. Okay, now the fun part is going to be cutting it. I'm going to find a blade, which has now wandered off somewhere else. Probably not the most exciting piece of video for you guys, but anyway. I don't know if you can see that I'm going to cut out the pickup shape, then I'm going to drill the holes or cut the holes through, and then we're going to just tape that in place, and it's going to form the nice, reasonably matte cover. I've also got the sort of hand-drawn wiring schema for this thing. It's a bit tricky because a couple of the wires changed colour where they've been just spliced together by somebody, the previous owner, and they changed colour in sort of mid journey, and sometimes right in the bridge in a tunnel between two parts of the guitar. That's where they changed colour, so it was hard to know without pulling them one way or another to find out which was which. Still, I got them mapped out in the end, which was good. I need to give myself a new clean blade. See if I can do it with this. Quite tricky. It doesn't help doing it with a piece of decking. I think I'll use a piece of flat flat wood instead. So I'm just going to tilt you if I can. Oh yeah. So I'm just going to cut along here. Instead of using scissors, I'm going to try and do it with the blade. Should be doable. Okay. Just it has to be probably freehand to do this. Going around the corner because I can't see any other easy way of cutting it. Certain thickness of plastic too, so it's not exactly easy, but we will see. You can just follow a freehand line so that it looks a bit natural. That went a bit awry there. It's gone through just about. Anyway, fiddly little things. This is a bit cosmetic more than anything, but I wanted to just make it look a bit less ragged than the paper he had in the first place. This microphone is quite. Christ, I've gone off on a tangent there. That's typical. How annoying is that? Damn, I spoiled that. I don't want to have to do all that again. It's totally annoying. Yeah, the microphone's very comfortable to wear. It seems like I did a quick test of or looked at the first bit of video, and apart from being a little bit too close to my mouth, which I've just addressed by moving it away now, it seemed to be okay. Right. Freehand with a bit of extra cut off, looking really crap, going off in the wrong direction. I wonder if I can. No, I can't really do much about that. How does that go through? Just about. I could create a little bit of extra, a bit of a gap, but it just looks a bit rough. Such a shame. So hard to work with just a blade, a raw blade. I think I might just work. Try to just cut away that extra bad cut. There we go. It's not perfect, but do you know what? It'll do. I'm just going to clean the pencil off it. Except, of course, I had. Yeah, that's all right. Question is now, where do the holes line up? I'm so fiddly. Damn it. See if I can position this once and for all. Let's see, can I get a mark on there and a mark on there, please? Right, that's good. So I want to go through with something quite simply, but I don't want to get a drill out, so I've got a file which I can go through. There we go, that should work all right. Come through it both sides just to make sure it's big enough. It's starting to boil in here now, better turn the heating off. Fiddly, fiddly stuff. Okay, should be large enough for the pickup retaining screws to go in. I'll go through. Excuse me a second, I'll take this scarf off, that might help. Okay. Righty-ho. Yeah, a bit tidier, not perfect, but better than nothing. Stick that out of the way. Get the springs and screws back. Still probably needs to be a bit bigger actually. Okay, let's get this show on the road. It doesn't want to go through because it's excuse me, it's a one of those flat-ended bolts, not really a screw, so hole needs to be a bit bigger all round. Doesn't even give us an awful lot of room because the little guttering around here, or the edging, is quite small. So let's see if we can get away with that. The problem I've got with this is I can't get an easy an easy angle on it from anywhere. Well, it's because the wiring sort of restricts us. That's the way it is. Come on. Oh, heavens above, get in there. If it only had a point to it, that would be really, really useful. But it doesn't. It's a big, thick, bolty thing, not a pointed screw. Damn it. Right. We cannot make that any bigger without the whole thing just falling apart. Okay. Well, I want to get some progress on this tonight. Okay, that one is on. Finally. So now, any minute, is this one. Finally. Jeez. Springs. It's just so fiddly. It's doing my head in. You've heard me say that a few times these last few days, particularly around this guitar. No, actually it wasn't this one, it was probably the B100 that was driving me mad the other day. Okay, now we have it. Spring for this one, please. Come on. Okay, getting there. Yeah, that's all right. A little bit tidier than before. Still not perfect, but now the question we had from earlier on is, or I think Joe felt that the switch was back to front. So just let me get this back in place. So this, if the switch is working back to front, then it's and the simplest way to do anything with it, I think, is just to take the switch out if we've got the room and reverse the, turn it round. It's just about, it's switching between the two perfectly well. It's just about, the issue is about where it's pointing. And it's confusing if you press it down towards the bridge and it kicks off the neck pickup. Right, so there's an improvement on the surrounding. It's not housed in a bit of paper anymore. It's in a piece of black plastic for a change. So turning it over, what we've got is the switch working the wrong way. So let's just have a look. We'll hoik it out and we'll see whether it tolerates being turned around the other way, depending on how much wire is available to us. Actually, judging by the way things are wired in here, excuse me, I don't actually think we've got any leeway on that. Or do we? Let's have a look. Where's the hole? Get in the hole, damn you. No, that's the issue. It won't do that. So yeah, the other way of doing this is we'll just go back and we'll put the I'll put the collar back on the switch, and then we can do it up and just keep it in place, because we know we're not going to move it anymore. There we go, through there. It's quite hard work to do anything fiddly like this. Yeah, so the other way around then is to just reverse the wiring. If the switch is already put in place in such a way that we can't adjust it, we've got haven't got enough wire to swap it over, then we'll just change the two wires around. I'll just also do this up with a little bit of plier and pressure, but not much, just so it'll hold in place for the time being. And then we'll actually do it with that. The little monkey wrench, no, adjustable, a little adjustable spanner, always handy. Okay, so that's left and right position, and if we switch over the wiring behind there, that will switch on the bridge instead of the that'll switch on the neck instead of currently it switches on the bridge. So it just means rewiring the two. I'll plug this back in because we're not going to do anything to this panel. Not going to rewire anything behind there. This pot here is a coil tapping switch behind there, not actually doing anything. I'm not sure if it was intended to, or if it's even possible to have that switch, these two pickups, into series. I don't think it can whilst this switch is in place, you see, because it has to be a different switch. Okay, so I'm just going to fire up the soldering iron, just so I can switch those two over. And meanwhile, just have a look at the frets so far. Get those out and assess where we've got to. Get ready to do the others. Okay, soldering iron is heating up. Bits of plastic can go away. Unclamping the neck over here. Sorry, I shouldn't have to shout because now the audio follows me around, so I won't shout. Okay, that's nice. They are nicely on. Beautiful. Absolutely level. Everything's good. So while I'm at it, I'm going to chop off the excess, and you can probably see how that happens here. Bits of metal flying around. Let's just move this over there for a second. So just going to get these and clip them off reasonably close to the wood, but with the pliers we can't get much closer. It's only a limit, and the rest we take off with the file. Come on. Thank you. It's a nice part of the process, this. Starting to move towards the final job. I mean, after this, of course, we still have to level the frets to make sure that they play properly. In a way, that's a kind of an easier part of it. Okay, so we've got 4 left to do actually, and then we can do the edging, and they're looking good actually from all angles, which is great. And there's loads of little bits of metal flying around this shed now. Okay, so I'm just going to hang this up for a minute while we do the rewiring on here. Try and collect up a few of these little bits, put them in the bin. Okay, so back to the wiring here. The middle brown wire in here is the kind of the both on position, and what we've got, if I change my glasses over, what we've got here is we've got a yellow going left and a red going right, but in fact we'll switch them over. You up there, and a little hooky thing. Get the red out the way. I've just done what I shouldn't have done, which was taking the brown off. Dull. Never mind, I'll put the brown back in the middle where it belongs. I'll switch the red over. There you go, that's just sort of going on half asleep. Okay, red to the left in this game. Brown in the middle, red to the left. Make sure we've got workable metal. Okay. I've got a lot of room to get this red over there, but should be alright. Sorry, I'm getting in the way of the camera. It's red in place, just need to get some solder on it now. Lovely. Okay, I'll tuck the red slightly out of the way there. See if I can just snip off the excess. Although, of course, the pliers I need for that are suddenly not immediately available. Why does that happen? Why does that happen? No, there they are, hiding away. It's all a bit of a mess over here. Got some serious spring cleaning to do one of these days. Right, I'm just going to tidy up these little overhanging bits in here. No real need to particularly, but just prefer it to be a bit tidied up. Just shake out these leftover bits, and we'll go in with brown. Yabba. I'll get this done and then I can get cracking with the last 4 frets. And once they're done, we're in business. Okay, there's the brown through the hole. Need to put some solder on. Solder. Thank you. And finally, we go to Yellowsville. Quite a bit of spare slack on this one. I think the little lights on this torch do help a lot. I really like that about it. Bend it over. Bit of solder. And we are there. Just cut the excess off that a second. See if we can hold it while we cut it as well. Maybe a bit of a surgeon's long shot, but we'll try. Close. Okay. Let me just roll that up tidily so it's tucked away in there. And everything else is tucked away too. Good. So that's our switch reversed. All things being correct, that should then give us the switch the right way round that Joe wanted. Just give this a quick wipe over. This guitar is charismatic. It's never going to be shining. That's the whole point. It's lived in. So ultimately, the objective here was to bring it back to life in terms of the neck and its playability. So I think we're well on the way to that. All right, I'm just putting the body out of the way for a minute. I've got another job for some of this plastic here, which is to create a shim. A couple of different shims actually to try out. So I'll put this away for use another day and keep this bit here. Right, so back to the neck. Sorry, clank. Back to the neck. So we've got to get the next 4 done, and that's actually a lot. I wanted to certainly get this stuff done today, because as soon as we've done the frets ends, I want to be able to start putting some lacquer on here. And then it will need all of the weekend to cure. It really needs longer than that, but it'll do for. Yeah, right. Let's be careful. It'll do for our purposes to at least to get it filled and shined, and then it will just harden after that. Okay, so we know that our fret slots are all clear. Just double check. Bring our filthy old cloths back, and right. So I'm just going to do what I did before, is lay on some glue to begin with, and get it into the use a knife to get it into the fret. Once it's in, then I will wipe off the surface glue, and we'll go over and press in for the final 4 frets. Currently I'm pressing them in actually with the 6-inch caul, which was a mistake, but it doesn't. It's a fortuitous mistake in a way, because it helps to press down the corners, and it does that just before we clamp it with the 7.25, so it gets clamped at 7.25, but the first bite, if you like, is with the 6, which is kind of helpful anyway, because it does that thing with pushing the edges right in, making sure they're in. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just take off the physical excess quickly. It's sort of a dry wipe, if you like, and then take off the rest with the wet cloth, and that leaves us with well, not a huge amount, but enough in the slot. Now I'm just going to try and lower this again. I'm starting to boil because I've got a sweater on, and I'm standing up in the place where towards the top it gets hot. It's where all the radiator heat sits under the roof of the shed. Okay, so here we are. We've got our neck rest. Frets running away underneath the, oh bloody hell, I've gone and lost the fret under there. Please, no. That is not useful. Huh. Tell you what, there are days when just about everything goes wrong, including losing frets. 2 of them in there, thank you. So, we're back to where we were a minute ago. So, I'm just going to change out my glasses once more. And we're away. It seems that these the frets at this the thinner end of the neck seem to me to have gone in a bit easier. Let's just clamp this on here and get the angle right. There you go. Nicely done. You can see all that glue squirting out the side. It's a very good sign. Again, as soon as it comes out, just going to do that quick once over with the cloth, just to avoid any or get as little contamination of the fingerboard as possible. Okay, next one. That's trying to go sideways, that one. It's that old thing again. I got it. Nice. Beautifully down. Yeah, I did try some of these with the drill press, and it, you know, although word on the street says you can use that, my experience of it is that there's just not enough secure strong downward force in the drill press. I don't know, maybe if you've got a really expensive one that's made of kind of solid steel or something, but most drill presses are kind of shed home workshop types, and there's no way that the little handle on that puts enough force into this job. And I did a few frets with that, and I just it's just not wasting time. I mean, they were okay, but it wasn't good enough, so I decided it had to be done with this, and that's final. Okay, so we are nearly there. Oops, I'm off target. Stop. Start again. Gone in all right? Yes, good. Just check it out. Yep, all good. Okay, so there's the 4 final frets. I'm going to just dry the fingerboard a bit, and then I'm putting it into the clamp, the 7.25 block to clamp it. And once we've done that, chop them off, and then we'll be ready for the fun, which will be time to treat the edges. We will need, for the next stage, we will need this block, we will need that file, put these cools away, we won't need those, we won't need that, shan't need that, turn the soldering iron off. A little bit of a tidy up here. Okay, so this has been a really interesting challenge to refret this guitar, and in my usual style I've taken extreme care, which is always the way I do things, and but what's been really good is learning some things along the way, so trying different things out, obviously under controlled conditions. And I can take this off now because I'm not cutting any more fret slots. Yeah, so it's the number of people I've spoken to and read about, talk about using super glue, and I think that when you've got a fairly new fretboard, or at least a fretboard that's probably deep enough to cut the slots quite a bit below the size of the fret tang, then it's probably a good thing to press them in and then drip some very thin super glue in after that. But as I said earlier on, this neck, this fingerboard, wasn't really going to have any of that because it's so old and thin now that there's no real space for that to happen. Hence the decision to do it the way I did it, which was to put glue in and then clamp it. Super glue is great because it does the sort of fixing much quicker, and actually it's sort of more positive. It really grabs the frets. But as far as I'm concerned, in this case it was pretty much, we had to go with the wood glue, and a sort of slower process, but in a way a more dependable one. And super glue, if you can't drip it in very carefully from the side, super glue is a real mess. It'll really mess up your fingerboard really quickly, because it sort of spreads out in this white dust or something. It's a nasty material. Now I want a cutting board. What I'm thinking of just doing here is I want to cut myself some slack, cut myself some shims, and I had two pieces of this plastic before that worked as a really good shim for the neck. In fact, it was just enough to do the job I needed it to do. So using my calipers digitalis, just going to try and measure, get a sense of what this thickness of these two pieces together is. Okay, so this is saying 1.19 millimeters. So let's say 1.2 millimeters. That was about what I thought, actually. So 1.2 millimeters. I mean, in shim terms, that's a big shim, man. And let's see what this is. Okay, so this is about 0.7. So two of these would be a bit more than I'd want. But one of those is not enough, and I prefer the black material. So I may do, not a cheat exactly, but I may do a workaround. If I could only find anything. I get the feeling I'm going to have to buy some tool storage or something, because this pile of stuff over here is now becoming a kind of regular pain in the backside. And I'm looking for something which isn't even in there, which is up here. So a thought then is, if I'm going to need to thicken this up, I'm going to put on a little bit of this electrical tape, see what that takes us to. Okay, so it's gone to 0.9. Okay, so let's see what happens with two layers of this stuff. I think this is lying to me now. Okay, it's still saying 0.9. Let's try 3 layers. Feels like you've got to zero these things every time. 1.06. So 4 layers of electrical tape would bring us up to the right width for this shim, which would be let's say 1.12, that's close enough. So we know piece of plastic, four layers of this stuff. While we're at it, I've got to now just think about the shape that I want to cut it. I remember that to get the thing pivoting in a way, it doesn't help that it doesn't need to be all the way down here, it needs to just be in one point. So we don't need an awful lot of material, but we need enough to bring it out. So let's try cutting something. Get an edge. Okay. So I'm going to just turn this around and draw a shape onto this. So I want this shape to fill up this space at the front end here. I don't want it to look... There you go, I got myself a shape. Yeah, I don't want it to, when it's sitting in there, I don't want you to see much of a gap. So we'll fill that front face of this with this material, which actually should look okay. And this should be just about the right size. So I'm just going to cut this single piece now, because I actually realise I don't need more than one piece for this. And we're going to try and just round it so that it makes a nice fit with the end of the guitar body. And just check it out. That's not too bad for the first shot. In fact, that works pretty well. Okay, so that should give us the shim we want at that point. It might be that I need to cut it even shorter than that, in which case I'll just lop off some of this end and I'll just put it on the corner behind the camera so I know where it is. So that's that wicked solution for the neck alignment problem sorted out, and really now it's just down to getting the neck, getting the frets done now, and we'll be away. Moving forward, get the guitar back together in one piece, test out the switch positions. As I said, the switch here is a coil tap switch by the looks of it, but I don't exactly know what it was set up to do, if anything. I presume Joe was aware it was there, although what it was originally put in for, I don't know. Okay. Right. So that, I think for now, is all I'm going to do. There is these strap locks, strap buttons are a bit loose, so I'm just going to see whether they do up. If not, then we might have to put a pad in. In fact, I might just put a pad in anyway, since they exist. I've got some, and they do help. God, if I can find where it went. But they really will help to keep it just under tension a little bit. It is. Oh, there they are. How cool is that? Little custom leather ones I made out of some spare bits. They're not perfect, you know. I made them myself from a. I think it was like a leather patch off, you know, the pocket of a brand patch on the pocket of jeans or something. But it just seemed like a good little recycled thing to do, really, because I constantly find these strap buttons come with no felt, and the purpose of the felt is to just give the screw something to bite on, and like this isn't doing. Anyway, so the little leather patch seemed to do just as good a job for me. And I drew the circles in felt tip pen and cut round them with a pair of snips. So let's see if I can just make that go through. There we go. So that will just give it that little extra bite. Nice. It looks fine too. I mean, it's not a perfect circle, but it looks absolutely fine. Anyway, when you have a little piece of felt on your guitar, it's almost always the case that that gets squashed to one side or another, so it never looks perfectly straight anyway. A little tip, if you're ever putting these strap buttons on, when you do it, make sure that you have the guitar body under a lot of pressure, so you're pushing it into the screw as you're doing the screwing up. Nice. Beautiful. So little bits. Again, this won't look that much different. There's nothing really massively clean about this guitar. But if we've given it another 20 years of life, anyway. Here in front of us we have the neck with the final 4 frets in place, beautifully fixed in place. Time to chip off the final the hangovers, and we are then going to be, I have to do these in 2 parts by the way, we'll then be in cutting the edge flat and then cutting the edge angled, and then into tidying it up with a file. So it's a great feeling to breathe new life into a neck by giving it a new set of frets, particularly one where maybe the owner has felt like been dreading it, and that's the kind of the end of it. It's had its day, there's no more playing you can do. So with luck this will be another 20 years of musical enjoyment out of this guitar. Right, so apart from a few bits of metal flying everywhere, turn this down so you can see. I don't know if this the light in this thing is going to dazzle you. It's just here, so I'll check on the laptop later on. Anyway, so here we have the fretted neck, everything beautifully fixed. Now we're going to use this this device here, and the purpose of this device is to take off the what do we call it? I'm trying to think of a best way to do this. What do I need? That's what I need. Yep, it's going to take off the overhang, and I'm doing it by pulling it towards me, running it over the top of the frets, and you can see it's taking off some good material. We lose force as we get to the end, so it's one of those things that you've got to either turn it round and do it deliberately, or focus specifically on the end down here so that we get all of it. So it's quite good that, for me anyway, I like it, the fact that it's not fixed, and I'm able to move it around as I'm doing it, so I can really change the emphasis. Now all the time when you're doing that, you want to be very careful. You're just very, very careful that you know when it's reaching the end just before it gets to the lacquered edge of the fingerboard. And it's interesting, you need to stop when it looks like it's still hanging over by quite a bit, because when you put the angle on it, it will take up that slack, if you see what I mean. Maybe. I guess the advice would be don't go so far to the point where it looks like it's flush. You need to stop while it still looks like it's a bit more than flush, sticking out a bit, because the bevel will take up the rest of it. Ow, missed. And again, just keep checking so you know what's happening and where you are. Okay. I mean, actually, in a way, there's no real harm in starting to put the slope on it already. It helps to have your fingers along the edge of this, because it looks easier than it is. Partly because this is a flat surface, and that you're not going down a flat surface, you're going down a curved radius. So which bit are you re-angling it to is the question. And actually, really, it only matters that it's an approximation. So I'm doing this way so I can see what's happening, and I can see the angle that it's making in contact with the fret. I'm doing it pretty slow, really, just at all times, making sure that yeah, it's never going too fast for my liking. Actually, you know what? It still isn't right. They're damped. Am I thinking what you're thinking, or are you thinking what I'm thinking? No, this is going to be, that is going to, oh, crap, man. After all of that, this is not good enough. Shit. Sorry, back to square one. It's not good enough. You know why? I think the thing that's missing, oops, that's probably quite good. I'll leave that off for a minute. I think what's missing is, I think that slot wasn't cleaned out, and so the fret hasn't sat in there properly. Now my question is, have I got one left? Yes, I have, thankfully. Well, okay, I was going to put this on hold for tonight then. Sorry. What I can do, I can clamp it and I can still work on the other pieces. Sorry, the other edges, I can file the other bits. It's a shame, but it's not good enough. And I will not settle for second best. Damn, and double down. No, it's too far up, way off. My mistake. I should have really paid attention to the slot. Balls. C'est la vie. Coming up horribly easily as well. Swine. Okay. Right, first things first. Let's clear that slot out. Right, I'm also going to get the 16, that's not 16. Going to get the 16, no that's not 16, bloody hell. Going to get the 16 out, which is now going to turn out to be right at the back, yep. And I'm going to just cut down a little bit, almost over cut it, to make sure that this thing is going to actually sit in there properly. Come on now, we're so close. I just want to get this done and get on and stuff and whatever. Excuse me. Right, which one did I just take out? The clipped one. So right, so back to the glue thing. Squirt out some glue. Put some glue in there again. See how boring it is when you don't go the way you want it to go? It's not boring at all actually, it's really challenging and interesting. Right, so there's the pile of glue into the gap, make sure it's all in there. All the way down. Getting there, just a bit slower than I wanted. Okay, I'm just going to do this off camera effectively. Sorry. Noisy. What a pain, this one thing kind of getting in the way. Just one fret netto. Just one fret netto. Give it to me. Delicious ice cream. You all remember that, don't you? You old British types. Americans amongst you may recognise the tune but won't recognise the significance of the fact that it was a British commercial for ice creams. There's a certain age group that grew up knowing that tune. Right, get in there, son of a gun. Now this is squeezing it with a 6-inch core, so that really should have convinced it to go down at the edges, right? You would think, right? You would think, wouldn't you? According to that, that has. I think that's getting the slot right was the thing. Okay. That's okay. Now I'm just going to put the clamp on that again. I'll leave that in here overnight. Do it. I mean, there are a couple also in here that aren't 100% perfect in that neck. Things never are, but they're fixed and well in place. So there's any slight variation in height will be taken care of in the fret leveling, which is of course exactly what you've seen me do loads of times. You know, and the inconsistencies are exactly, you know, just as every guitar's got uneven frets, so has this guitar that I've fretted, because it's an inconsistent process. It's, you know, it's human done by humans and can have error in it, and as a result, it just means that it does need the fret leveling process to make sure that everything's it needs the fret leveling process to make sure that everything's level, or rather obviously. So I've got a edge on this file, which is what's the word? Soft, rounded edge. It means I can run it gently over the fretboard and it doesn't do any harm. It just lets me round off these frets here. Hello, love. I'm nearly done. Well, I've just had to redo another one for about the third time, but that's okay. I can live with that. Yeah, not too bad. I'm just...
Do you think you're perfecting the technique?
Oh yeah, plenty of practice doing it again and again and again and again. No, just the
Why are you having to do it again?
that last one, I don't think I dug out the previous slot well enough, so I don't think it got seated far enough down.
Right.
Which wasn't I mean, it's not a big problem in the end.
Go down to a certain
Yeah. Well, I think in having put it down and then taken it off again, I think what it did is it left some stuff in the hole, and therefore I had to kind of go down and clean it out, so I could get it all the way down into the bottom again. Just try to round these off, you see, so they're smooth.
I've got a half round file.
What does that mean?
Do perfect.
Half round? You mean concave?
Flat on one side and curved on the other.
Have you? Get it from me.
Oh, no.
No, okay. Well, thanks.
I just walked into the deck.
Oh, in the dark. Do you want my torch, you think? Half round file. Whatever next? I don't actually know what a half round file is, so I'm about to find out. You're not supposed to cut through the paper, you darn file, you.
This is my favourite file. This one.
Oh, I've got one of those.
Oh, have you? Anyway, sweetie, I'm going to go.
Okay.
Oh, he's been lying by the fire.
Oh, he's come to visit me.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a microphone here. Well, I'm sure if he's staying. Has he forgiven you for locking him in there? How did he get in there anyway? No. I went in this morning first thing, but he's been out, hasn't he? Huh?
It was a bit like when I found him in here. He's been in here a long time.
He thought that was it, and he was going to stay there forever. He's just... Alright then, night. Poor old Morris. Sure he'll forgive us. You forgive us, Morris? Okay. Right, so this is, I'm going to switch this off because you're just going to get bored, I'm afraid. And I will speak to you when we've sorted out this refret down here, and we'll get on with putting the whole guitar back together again. Finally. Hey, welcome to the Relove Guitars workshop. Morris has just let himself in again, and boy, are we looking at some bright lights here. Wow. Dazzle, dazzle, dazzle. Anyway, so this is a good moment to just remind you where we are. We are about to get this Fender Musicmaster neck back into action on the connecting it to the rest of the guitar. So I'm just going to get a quick dust over. Excuse me. And the plan will be to we'll put this onto the body. There's a couple of tiny little bits of lacquer which I'm leaving to dry first of all. I've filled some of the big holes, so it's a nice smooth neck at the moment, but I'm just going to put them in lightly first of all, so that we can just make sure they all sit nicely relative to each other before we tighten it all up. Okay, I'm looking forward to hopefully finding out that the extra movement space on the bridge will have solved our string alignment problem. That would be brilliant if it has, and it will be as much as a surprise to me as it probably will be to Joe to find that that can happen at all, not knowing that there was in fact that adjustment that you could make. And like I say, tomorrow I've got a couple of bits of lacquer to polish up on the neck, but it's nice and smooth now, and those big holes, they're still there. They look, I mean, visually they're still there, but they're actually now taken care of so you don't feel them. This is a much nicer neck to play, and of course the fact it's got new frets on it really helps. Okay, two more. The Fender tuners on this have the split post, which I really like. I think I mentioned right at the beginning of all of this video that on my Squier JV Japanese Squier 1983 Strat, those tuners, similar style tuners, as simple as that, they are the most effective tuners out of all of the guitars I've got, which is really amazing. Quite simple, but a really effective way of tuning up. So these this one is a little bit bent, it's low E. In fact, they're all a little bit bent. Wow. It'd be nice to be able to have some new ones. I think these are literally just bent. They've taken a bang at some point in time. I don't want to just bend them away because they obviously just about work as they are, so I'm just going to tighten them up as they sit. No doubt Joe will be used to the quirkiness of them. They're so old I wouldn't want to take the risk of putting them under pressure to try and bend them straight. These screws are a little bit old, they've sort of had their day. Okay, so now I've got one screw left over and I've got the string tree to put that on. And that'll go in there. And on this guitar it goes right down to flat on the deck, which doesn't give... It takes the strings at quite an angle over the nut. Okay, so we didn't need those, but I think we will need some, potentially need the pickguard screws any minute now. So here's the moment of truth. We know that the wiring is the correct way round. Having looked inside, concluded that to make this thing run these two pickups in series would require a fair bit of excess switching to go on. So we don't really have a chance to do that now. Okay, so here's our bridge to go back in place. And what we've got is both in place, pointing upwards. Just going to give them a last little extra turn to keep them on. Nice. Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's put these things off to one side. I'm going to choose an appropriate head for this, for these screws. It's not that one, so let me go to the box, get the right thing. In fact, the one I want is somewhere else, strangely. It's probably knocking about on here. It will probably be that one. We'll just double check before we go any further. That's good. Now I find the missing pickguard screw, and what I'm going to do is, before I go any further, I'm just going to replace that one because it's more in keeping. Mine was a bit newer. So let's take that out and put the original one back in. Okay, now here we go, the fun part. I'm going to line our neck up without shim. Okay. We've got some more sanding, like I said, tomorrow to do, but we can do that with the guitar together in one piece. There's our plate. Drop the screws in place. Now I'm going to put this together, and then I'm going to do a test string from the bridge across to the over up to the nut. I'm going to see what the position is, and let's see whether or not this moving the bridge saddles has cured the string alignment problem. So I'm just letting the screws pull the neck to wherever it needs to go. I'm putting very light torque on it for now. Okay. Hey, welcome back together in one piece. Dun, da, 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 da. Right. I'm going to just chop off this. Actually, I don't need to. I'll probably get it through. Interesting. No, of course, what am I talking about? Of course that doesn't work. Oh, I'm such an idiot. You've seen it live on TV. Live on TV. Live on TV, that does not work. Of course it doesn't work, because it has to have a string either side of it. That's what the bloody thing's for, you nutcase. So, for those of you who've been watching this going, you idiot, right? That's fine. You've got the benefit of something sight, foresight, hindsight. I don't, so I have to go back to where I was, and I do have to shim this bloody thing. Oh well, you've got to live and learn, haven't you? I wasn't actually thinking where the strings went through. And of course the strings go through either side of the bridge saddle peg, and my finger is bleeding again. This is silly. Right, so we will have to shim this after all, if I can just stop bleeding for long enough to do it. So, takes one shim, and I'm going to place the shim here. I'm going to, thank you, drops this, lifts this up, take it out altogether for a minute. Oh, I've just made this hard, haven't I? I thought I'd done a good job of first aid or something. Can you stop for a minute? Right, so the game of shim. I don't want to have to put another thing on there because I'll just never be able to move my hand. Don't worry, I'm not going to get any blood on your guitar, I promise you. I'm absolutely sure of that. Okay, so there is my shim in place. And there is my finger bleeding. God damn it. Not good. It's quite what's the word? Quite earnest. What do you reckon, Morris? I'm just going to have to cut myself another temporary bandage, aren't I? There's no two ways around it. Tum-ty-tum-ty-tum. Using this nasty old cloth. Of course I can't cut this thing with a knackered hand either. Stay there. Honestly. It's really annoying. It's all because I cut myself looking for that bleeding Allen key, which I never found. Right. Okay, so I've put the shim in there. That's quite extreme. But we do know that once that's in there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it together with that shim right there, and we'll redo the bridge bits. I won't bore you with forcing you to watch them because it's going to be far too boring. Let's push that into place, turn that over. So, on with the Fender, on with this. Anyway, it'll be a good test and see. If it's too thick, we'll obviously go back and go back to the beginning and thin it down. So the screws are very obliging. They go right back in. And this will all pull itself together on the last one. Again, hardly any torque just to get it together. So we can see the effect of the shim. Right, so there we have the shim in place. It doesn't look that much different. Obviously it is having some effect on just whole shifting the guitar over. Now I've got to take off these, so let's go through with the E string, and we'll just get this a low and high E, and we'll get one from one of the spare sets I've got here. This is the problem of having a pre-used string, of course, is getting it to work at all, because it's all coiled and it's hard to get through the hole. And we can actually get to the right place up here, so I'm going to cut this a bit, drop it into its slot and fold it over. And tune it up. This is, again, this isn't to be used, this is just for alignment purposes. The other thing is, if the nut height is too low, then we can just redo that as well. Oh, my poor fingers. I've suffered for my art. Okay, and I'm happy with the alignment of that. So that shim has, I can do the other one just to be on safe, just to be sure, but I can see already that that shim has sorted that problem out. Let's see if I can untangle these. Oh my god, it's such a mess up here with these strings. It's not going to be the best way to keep them, so I'm going to have to sort those out tomorrow. It's got a load of kind of intertwined strings, which sort of means that you can never really get them off to use them because they're just caught up. I managed to get one there. Pretty impressed. Okay, I'll cut this extra bit off because it's not going to be very cooperative. Come on. Just getting that first bit through is a nightmare. Oh, please. Honestly. How hard can that be, really? But as soon as you've got a bent piece of wire, will it go anywhere you want it to go? Will it hell? Look at that. You'd think it would be an easy thing to do. How to reduce a grown man to tears. Ask him to thread a piece of guitar string into a slot. Oh, that's a bit of a stiff one, that tuner. It works, but it would take a while to string this guitar with that. Well, I'm going to have to do that sometime in the near future. Very soon, probably tonight. Anyway, let's get this just in for now. I'm nervous about using a string winder on this string because, on this machine head, because it is so out of true that I don't want to do any damage to the cogs by just cranking it around in a fixed position, which is what the string winder would want to do. So hence I'm doing it by hand, which is bloody exhausting actually. But it'll be all worth it because it'll tell us where we are in our alignment process. Okay, shove these around a bit. I have to say, just looking down there, I think that is as good as it's ever going to be. It's not bad at all. Whew, okay, and that's with the shim in place, and that's where the shim's going to stay, Joe. So, and that's the positioning taken care of. obviously old strings. Right, so that's good. We know that's the case. We know the pickups work. Right, so having done that, it is now 12:15. It's getting late. I want a cup of tea, but I also want to finish this. So, knowing that this is okay, I'm going to take these strings off again. I'm going to tighten up the neck. Oh God, actually, I will actually save myself a bit of time with this one. And yeah, tighten up the neck, and then I'm just going to go and make a cup of tea. I'm going to shave off the extra bit on the nut, and I'm going to mask off the neck just before I do that, because it's quite not delicate. What's the word? Yeah, you just need to make sure that when you're doing it, you're not hitting the fingerboard or finish in any way. And also, once I've done it that way, I also want to go sideways. And now you can't see. I'm very sorry. Forgive me. Just going to cover the fingerboard sideways, so we can take this down somewhat, but not hit the fingerboard, or at least we'll wear out the masking tape before we wear out the wood. Do a couple more at this side, and then I'll try and rearrange this so you can see on the camera. All you can see is the back of me now. Go there for a minute, would you? Not the easiest thing to film now. This light dangling around in the way. You move to there. Lights now have worn out, the batteries have conked, so it's not really working out too well. Okay. So what I want to be able to do here is just to take off the overhang, and I'll probably use my other glasses for that. Yeah, we don't want this extra overhang on this on the nut, so we just have to take it down, and these diamond files are pretty good for that. So I'm taking it flush or flat first, and then I'll just curve it over so that it doesn't have a sharp edge. But I'm also being careful not to damage the slot for the E. Okay, that's done on that side. This side's a bit bigger, so it'll take a while longer. I don't know if I've got a better one than this, but it's quite nice fun to reshape these things. And what I like to do is, once I've cut the nut slots, is to take the strings off to one side and then reshape any excess nut, get it kind of out of the way, so that you can kind of make a custom nut. But I mean, it's just you make it really as fine a shape as it can be to do the job it's got to do. So I can still feel a slightly sharp edge on this, which I will do until I've gone right down. but I've just got to keep an eye that it doesn't go through the masking tape. Quite hard to get an absolute flush finish with the nut because of course the minute you've got it flush to the wood, then you're also filing the wood, so there's always going to be a little bit of crossover between the two. Right, okay, those are roughly okay for now. A little bit sharp around the front edge of that, which doesn't need to be. Again, all of this could be slightly adjusted. None of it needs to be sharp. The only sharp thing needs to be the front edge, or the front bottom edge of the slot where it leaves the string leaves the nut. Okay, that'll do for now. Can do any tiny mods later on. Okay, that just for your information, your little lady sticker came off the end there, but I'm just going to paint her back on with a little bit of lacquer, and she'll sit on that, and then I'll cover her over with a little bit of lacquer, and she'll be fine and dandy. Then I can, what's the word? Shine it up afterwards. Here she goes, back in place. There's my blue rag. Okay, almost tea time. So just put a thin layer over the top of her. Make sure she stays well in place. She looks a bit better with a layer of lacquer on there. Brings her colour out a little bit better. Okay. That's cool. Sorry, keep hitting the microphone. Right, that. I've got some fair old holes in me today from doing things. Not all to do with this guitar, I have to say. So, a bit of a long drawn out thing this, but here we have the Musicmaster, just about ready to be re-strung. So before I do it, I'm going to take this opportunity to put a tiny bit more oil on it because it's drying a little bit, and then let that sink in for a few minutes while I go and get a cup of tea, and after that I'll be back out to restring. Take a quick picture of this as well while I'm here, stick it on Facebook. So, what have I learned from doing this? Well, as I said to Joe at the time, when I started this, I was, first of all, very straight. I said I hadn't done a refret before, but I was in the process of getting the equipment to do it, so that was something I was heading to do. So, first rule, I guess the reason I'm telling you that, it's not because it's a surprise to Joe, but I'm telling you because if you're ever interested in doing this, the point about this is you can just get on and do it. Okay, you can give it a go, and you can, as long as you take it carefully and take it slowly, and do your research and get the equipment you need to do it, then, like me, you can do it. And it really is a matter of doing your reading first, finding different views, making sure you've checked all the different perspectives, and you know what's expected, or you know what to expect, and what you have to do, and what's going to come up along the way. So long as you do that, and you make sure you have the right equipment, then once you've got that, then it's just a matter of taking it very, very slowly, and every step methodically, so that there's no risk of you making a mistake. So it is really about slow and safe all the way, and so it's not a rocket science task to do it. That's the point I'm making. It is about caution and taking care. So, as I've proven, anyone can do it, but you have to be prepared, and that means having read up on what you need to do. And so partly the thing about reading and researching and watching great videos on YouTube is they're a fantastic resource. They show you what to expect, so you know a load of issues before they actually happen, and you know what to do if they do happen. So research, preparation, and lots of cups of tea. Look. Oh yeah, the Maurice. Look. Mind, this is, oh no, it's okay. There's not, there is not lacquer, I thought. It's underneath. But look, it's together, and the neck alignment problem is fixed with the shim. And I've tested 2 strings, 2 E's, and it lines up perfectly. The little transfer came off, so I stuck it back on with lacquer. The little, I don't know, Memphis Belle or whatever her name is, but it's still wet. So now I'm ready to restring. Pickup's working in the right order. Neck oiled.
Lovely.
Time to restring and test out. And it still looks as battered and old as it did.
Got the character still, is that what it does then?
Yeah, well, I didn't make it look any newer. The only thing I can't do is these little grub screws. They look like they're a bit seized in. They're old, so they're seized in place. They're the up and down bits, so I can't adjust the action until I either get some new ones of these or get an Allen key that really works, because my little one that I lost in here is probably the one that would have done it, if any would have done it, but I don't think. I can try one, but the only problem with this is that I think these are seized anyway because they're so old. But anyway, it should be all right to start off with, because yeah.
Oh, very exciting.
And that's new.
Just see how it's all coming back together again.
Yeah, I've got a bit of filing to do down there in the light of day. It's a bit sharp, but apart from that, all's ready.
Good job.
So I just think I'll just get on now and restring it, put the neck under load, and then leave till tomorrow at some point, just the last tweaks. So, well, oh no! Do you know what? I've caught myself on the hop. Oh, I don't believe it. I haven't got any strings.
Strings in.
it.